or email them at info@barrycullen.com. Live with CDP Sports Talk is on weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. And a shout out to station manager Ryan O'Neill. Guys, I have some bad news, good news and bad news. The bad news is my scheduled guest tonight, Lee Newton. Unfortunately, she's a Nashville recording artist star. She just released 2 new songs, Carolina Rain and Maybe I Will, Maybe I Won't. Unfortunately, she won't be on tonight. She's having some internet power issues down in South Carolina. So we're going to reschedule with Lee Newton. Hopefully soon we'll have her on our show. And what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to air the best of Live with CDP. I just did an episode about a month ago with Keith McPherson, radio personality with WFAN 660 in New York City. Keith is a huge Yankees fan, Brooklyn Nets fan, huge sports fan, so we're going to air that show as well. And before we get into that show, I want to wish my cousins in Taylor, Michigan, Mike and Terry, a very happy 43rd anniversary. They were married on this date, May 9th in 1981. I was at their wedding. I was only 9 years old at the time. So happy 43rd anniversary to my cousins, Mike and Terry in Taylor, Michigan. And my cousin's birthday is tomorrow too. So I want to wish happy birthday to my cousin, Terry in Taylor, Michigan as well. But again, guys, I do apologize, but technical difficulties have kept my guest Lee Newton on from tonight. And what we're going to do is go on with the show. So I'm going to air an episode a month ago with Keith McPherson from WFAN Sports Radio 66 in New York City.
Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Season 7, Episode 54, overall 384 of Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210, or email them at info@barrycullen.com. Live with CDP Sports Talk is on weeknights from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern on radio station CKRT, Border City Radio in Windsor, playing the best soft rock music of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I'm also on WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern as well. I'm looking forward to today's show on this. I can't believe it's already Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. And this is going to be my guest's first time on the show. And his name is Keith McPherson. He's a radio host and personality with WFAN 66 AM Sports Radio in New York, the original sports station that I grew up listening to back in 1988 when it first came on the air. And I'm excited to have Keith on my show. And we're going to talk a little bit about Keith's career in radio and maybe a little bit about the Yankees and some of his sports teams as well. Good morning or good afternoon, Keith. How you doing?
Hey, Chris. How's it going? Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk some sports with you. Share a little bit of my story, and hopefully somebody hears this podcast and they're entertained and they can relate to a little bit of it.
Absolutely. Is this your first podcast radio show from Canada you've been on so far?
Maybe. I don't think I've connected with too many people north of the border. So let's say, yeah, this is the first one.
Okay, that's great. Hey, and I was going to say, when I was growing up in the 80s, I'm an old guy. I grew up in the 70s and 80s with radio and talk radio, sports radio. But I remember back in the late 80s when WFAN started up, your station has that strong signal. And at nighttime, 9 o'clock here near Toronto, I would listen to your station. And I used to listen to Joey Mack or Jody McDonald, Jody Mack and Steve Summers and Susan Woolman. So I kind of grew up with your station growing up in the late 80s.
Yeah, the originals, the originators. Man, WFAN has been a long. I mean, I was born, halfway through '88, so WFAN has been around longer than I've been alive, and it's great to see that it's still alive and well, and we're still doing what we're supposed to do, talking sports, connecting with fans 24/7, 365.
How is the radio industry over in the States? I know in Canada, there's a couple of companies, Rogers and Bell, that have monopolies, and they've kind of downsized the industry here. But how overall is it doing in New York City and overall in the States?
Yeah,
From
it's.
your
I mean,
perspective?
from my perspective, radio is such an intimate platform, and it's also something that so many of us can get passively. I don't think it's going anywhere. I just think it's evolving. And now, obviously, with these cell phones, everybody's got to have an app to listen to the Odyssey app or wherever you stream the radio. And with social media, being able to put clips of the radio host on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, so people can see us. And then that leads into the radio, doing live streams of the radio on TikTok, on Twitch. All of that stuff helps. So I think the radio is alive and well. And I think it's just adapting to the current space in media.
I got my taste of broadcasting 4 years ago during the pandemic, doing camera work, which led to my podcast, which led to my radio show. And like I said, when I reach out to guests, I always like to check their stories. And I thought your story was inspiring as well, because like I said, I've had a lot of people tell me I can do this, but I've also had a lot of people, naysayers, and had to block out the noise as well.
Yeah, big thing that I say is that the people that haven't accomplished anything are the ones that are going to tell you you can't do it. A big thing that I had to get over myself was realizing that, like, the people that can't do it won't do it, and they're going to tell you the same thing. So once you just kind of block that out and you lock in and you have tunnel vision on yourself and who you want to be, it'll get better. But if you start listening even to like your parents, your cousin, your brother, your sister, like, even they could love you, but just their own perspective of their life, they'll project on you. So that's what a lot of people are doing. People don't hate up, or people only hate up. They don't hate down, right? The most successful, accomplished people don't look down on other people and say, you'll never do this. We try to inspire other people, and that's what I do now that I'm on the radio. I try to connect with so many people online. I try to connect with young people and tell them you can do it. I was a 1 out of a million chance to make it. If I could do it, you could do it. You just got to want it bad enough. So yeah, the people that tell you you want to make a podcast and make money off that, you think you're good enough to be on the radio, you want to be on TV one day, no way. They're just projecting on you their thoughts of themselves because they could never do it.
Absolutely. And like I said, when I started this out, I had to do a lot of work, and people don't realize this. Even when you do a podcast from home, it's a lot of work. You have to be consistent. You have to put yourself out there. Booking guests itself is a full-time job. And also too, I've learned how to edit video. I've learned this, what's the word I'm looking for? And this would apply to you or anybody else that's trying to get into radio media. Step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And you've made yourself a one-stop shop. You've made yourself someone that can do it all from scratch. And I had to do that same thing too. I took what I applied in the corporate world, or I took what I learned in the corporate world and applied it to myself and my own brand. So I did social media for about 5 years, working in New York City for MTV, Fubo TV, Rock Nation. So I was one of the minions behind the scenes, tweeting stuff that you don't know who the person sending it out is, the admin, or they think it's intern. But like, I also learned how to edit videos at MTV. And then that led me into getting Adobe Premiere and cutting videos up. And then obviously I went to school for radio and television. So I already knew about audio and cutting up audio and making the audio, getting the P-pops down or cutting out dead air. And, some of the podcasts that I originally was doing, before we had platforms like StreamYard, I was taking the Zoom video, the Zoom audio, paring that down, putting that together, editing that up, and uploading it to YouTube. And I just have a ton of respect for people doing it on their own. I feel like you need a team now to be really successful. I'm trying to build a team myself. I'm like, I can't be the guy behind the camera, in front of the camera, in the cutting room, but props to you for being self-taught, efficient, and saying, this is something I want to do. I can't wait on anyone else. I'll figure out how to do all facets of it so I can get it done.
And I think the more you can do, the better. I even do camera work, digital writing. So I might not be the best at everything, but I think the more you can learn and the more you can do, the more of an asset you become. And no matter what career you're in.
Absolutely. And it can lend itself to so many other things. Something I tell people all the time, because I have a lot of young people that are just like, I want to be on air. Can I be on your podcast? And I'm like, you can't skip steps, bro. You can't just jump to being the guy on the mic and being the guy on the camera. Learn how to add value. Learn how to be an asset. Learn how to, take notes for somebody. Learn how to edit for somebody, audio, video. Learn how to do these little things behind the scenes, and then you'll make your way up to being in the chair. Once you add value, then someone will say, yeah, let's hear your thoughts. Come on and be on the show.
Absolutely agree with you there as well. First question I wanted to ask you, Keith, since I'm based out of the Toronto area, and this technology is amazing because I do my shows to Windsor, Ontario, and Noonan, Georgia from my home. So this technology has been really great for my career. But my question I wanted to ask you, can you tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm blessed. I always start off with that. God-fearing man. A kid that started off in the church in Jacksonville, Florida with my grandmother, not knowing much about anything, but knowing that I needed faith, knowing that I needed to believe in something, and I needed to have God in my life as a guiding light. And that's been the consistent thing from the start. Now, I'm also blessed that I've been given talent. I've been given a lot of different traits and attributes that make me who I am. But, man, I started with nothing. My parents were divorced when I was a baby. My mom raised 3 kids on her own. My mom never went to college. My dad never went to college. I'm the first person from my family to go to school on an athletic scholarship at that and graduate with a 4-year degree. There's still nobody else in my family that has a bachelor's degree. And so what I'm saying is, I blazed a trail from nothing to something. And that's more reason why I give people the faith. I give people the hope. I give people the game that you could do it. You could literally do it. But it takes a lot of hard work. And that's all I've ever done is worked hard. That's all I've ever done is grinded. And it's just different ways. So I'll say I started off in Monmouth County, Ocean Township, New Jersey, the shore area of the Garden State, as someone who just wanted to make it out. And my way out was playing football. So I started playing football in the hood. I started playing football in the street, tackle football in the street on a little bit of grass that we had in my apartment complex, but always had a football around. I hooped too. I played basketball and I played baseball. I started playing baseball in 96 when the Yankees were really good. And I fell in love with baseball first, but football was my sport because football was a sport that I could train for mentally, physically, alone. And when, I said my parents are divorced, my dad wasn't around, but my brother was there a little bit. My brother put the ball in my hand. And once my brother brought me a football, knowing that they made me play quarterback at age 11, man, I took that all the way through high school. And I was all state. We won the state championship. I had 15 scholarships to go play football in college. The first one came from Hofstra University, and then Delaware, and then James Madison, and a bunch of other schools. I ended up going to James Madison University. Shout out to the Dukes. Go Dukes. They are in a great time period for their athletics. But I was a fish out of water down there, and I also went and undeclared. I didn't have a major. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But I thought back to when I was 16 in high school, I got the opportunity to call Pop Warner football games. Like, hey, fans, welcome to Albert F. Corelli Field. Today we have 3 matchups, the junior Pee-wee, and midget team, and I would call all 3 games. And when I was in college, I was like, I kind of like that. And I remembered a guy that came up to the booth when I was scared as hell, nervous as hell, messing up people's family names, and he said, you've got a great voice, and sounds like you got a knack for this. You should go to school for communication. I had no idea what that meant at 16, but fast forward to being 18, 19, I transferred out of James Madison University, And I looked at a bunch of different schools to play football from D1 to D2 to D3. But I knew after being around some guys that went to the NFL, I wasn't NFL caliber. My next move, I had to know what I wanted to do as a career. I went to Monmouth University, which had a FM radio station on campus, WMCX, and a school TV channel on campus, a school TV studio, Hawk TV. I graduate from Monmouth University. I do a bunch of things. And while I was at school, I was a DJ, 2 turntables and a microphone. And that is how I kind of just like stayed afloat. I worked at Guitar Center. I got the opportunity to audition for the MLB Fan Cave. And that was my big break. That got me into what I was talking about before, the social media work, because MTV had a TV show at the MLB Fan Cave where I was able to parlay my experience from the MLB Fan Cave into being a social media coordinator at MTV. And then I'm blanking on Warren's name. He went up there and played, but I played quarterback in high school. I wore number 8. 8 wasn't available. 16 was available. And I ended up getting 16 out of the numbers that were available. I didn't even pick it. And it was fine. I liked 16. 8 times 2, 16. And playing quarterback in college was extremely hard. The playbook was difficult. We ran a lot of no huddle where you had to know hand signals. They're signaling plays in from the sideline, numbers, different things that mean different things, and you got to kind of bark it out at the line of scrimmage. I am not the biggest guy. Now I'm like 6'2", 200. That's what I actually was in college. But like in college, there are guys that weigh 300 pounds. In college, there's guys that are 6'5", 6'6". Getting hit hurts. Playing football hurt. And I knew after my sophomore year, where I was the 3rd string quarterback, I'm just like buried on the depth chart. I didn't touch the field. I wanted to party. I had to go to class. I had to go to football. Something had to give. And man, back then, there were a lot of legal things going on as far as like the workouts and the type of stuff that they could put kids through in college. I just was not into it. And I was a fish out of water. I went home. So I transferred to Monmouth University, and I came in as humble as possible. They gave me like a 75% partial scholarship. Good enough. I was back home, and I said, I don't need to play quarterback. What I did was play scout team quarterback, and then I started playing special teams and receiver. So I would catch punts, which is a skill, kick return, which is a skill, and I started playing a little bit of X and a little bit of Z, outside receiver and slot receiver, and just helped in practice. I had to sit out a year because the transfer portal wasn't open yet. And then the year that I was in line to make the club and be one of the 6'7" traveling wide receivers, I broke my foot fighting with my brother. And my 5th year, I gave my scholarship back because I knew I had something on the radio at Monmouth University, DJing in the bars, clubs, parties. That became more important to me. And that looked like more of what I was going to end up doing than going to the CFL or NFL or going to the combine or any of that type of stuff. And I'm glad how it all kind of worked out.
Would you ever be interested in coaching football at some point? And were you, the coaching part of it? Did you have a favorite, most memorable football game that you were in?
So when I was about 23, I got out of college. I graduated college 2011. So I turned 23, and man, I had no connections. I had nobody to put my resume on top of other resumes. I had nowhere to go. I just was someone who graduated with a degree. Like I said, I would get a little bit of DJ gigs. I would MC in local bars, clubs. I just had nothing. So my high school quarterback coach ended up being the head coach at my high school by that time. And he's like, hey, man, we can bring you in. I think it was like $2,000 or $2,500 for the season to coach JV and help out. And I applied, but they didn't accept me. Struck out again. So that was the closest I ever got to coaching football. And I knew, even then I knew, I'm like, I am going to be somebody. I am going to be on the mic, on camera. And even back then, I got some opportunities to DJ in front of big crowds, bars, clubs, whatever. So I just kept hustling that way. Best football game I was a part of, state championship. We got to play at Rutgers University. I rushed for over 100 yards. I think I had a touchdown. I threw for some good amount of yards. It's probably still out there. I know I have the newspaper clippings, whatever, but the best game that I ever was in. College, I didn't get into any games. College, I was a bench player, backup. Didn't get into any games, at least not to affect the game enough. But high school, winning the state championship, it's still the last state championship at my high school. That was the best game ever, just to win a championship. Winning a championship in anything in life as a fan or player is the apex.
Absolutely. Did you have some football players that you grew up liking?
Oh, yeah, of course. So I grew up in the era of, I'm unfortunately a Dallas Cowboys fan. I grew up in the era in the 90s where Troy Aikman was my favorite player because he was the quarterback. I wore number 8 in high school literally because of him. When I started playing quarterback at age 11, I wanted number 8 because of Troy Aikman. Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders, those group of guys. But, even after that, I was just talking on the air about the era that we saw with Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Aaron Rodgers. Like that era of quarterbacking, there were so many good quarterbacks and running backs. Adrian Peterson. Like we had a good era of NFL football from the late 90s to late 2000s. And now the game has changed so much. They're changing the kickoff. There's too many penalties. But I would say Troy Aikman, the Dallas Cowboys, those were my favorite teams. Even like the Moose, Darryl Johnson, and Jay Novacek. And even later on, I never was a Tony Romo guy, but Dez Bryant. I was always a big Dez Bryant guy. And now CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons.
By the way, don't hate me. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, by the way. But
I hate all of you. I hate everybody that reps Philadelphia.
Yeah, no worries. But hey, those Cowboy teams in the 90s were great. And I'll be honest, this is coming from an Eagle fan. If they didn't fire Jimmy Johnson, I know they won another Super Bowl with Barry Switzer. I think the Cowboys team could have won 4 or 5 Super Bowls under Jimmy Johnson if he had stayed instead of
Jerry Jones. The Dallas Cowboys will not win anything until Jerry Jones steps aside.
We're lucky in Philadelphia because right now our owner Jeffrey Lurie,
and Howie Roseman, they're great.
You can't win every year, and obviously the Eagles had some issues, but they are trying to commit to winning, and that's the thing with the Cowboys. Until they get a new owner, I agree with you on that. I'm a Detroit Pistons fan right now, and we're the biggest mess in pro sports, and that starts with ownership. And that's like any pro sports team. It all starts at the top and goes all the way down. Hey, I wanted to ask you this as well. Who are some of your influences in your radio career, and did you have a mentor or mentors when you were starting out in the radio industry?
I'll start at WFAN. I didn't grow up listening to WFAN. It wasn't programming in my mom's car. The sports stuff is all me. My dad wasn't around. I started watching TV. I started telling my mom to buy me Yankee stuff, buy me Cowboys stuff, sign me up for Little League, sign me up for Pop Warner football, Biddy basketball. So like getting into sports, I love John Madden. When I was younger, I love Chris Berman, all the Sports Center guys, Stuart Scott. But then as I got older and I did listen to WFAN, some on my own in my own car, John Sterling calling the Yankees game, Susan Waldman, who I rub shoulders with them now. It's amazing to have both their contacts and be in the booth with them in the past and them know me. Sweeney Murdy, I love Sweeney. Sweeney is a friend and a mentor now. And when I came into WFAN, he was my favorite voice and personality because I would watch the Yankees. I'd get all frustrated. And then Sweeney Murdy every night doing the post-game show would do it the same way. Just like whether the Yankees won or lost, Sweeney would have it very like measured, even-keeled. And I just think he's one of the smartest guys, baseball-wise, professionally, and he's a good guy, man. I love Sweeney Murdy. Mark Malusis is part of my story because when I was in the MLB Fan Cave in 2014, Mark showed up there. And to see somebody that you've heard on the radio, it just like breaks down a wall for you, like makes them real. He became a real person. I was able to shake his hand and talk to him. And I got a little WFAN keychain that day I put on my keys, and it is still on my keys 10 years later. Craig Carton. Back when I was in the Fan Cave, they had me call into Craig Carton's show, but I couldn't get on. So then they had me leave a voicemail, and that never got played. But I was trying to get on Boomer and Carton back then to promote Derek Jeter in his final All-Star game and talk about the Fan Cave and Jeter's career and all this other stuff. So Mark Malusis, Sweeney Murdy, Craig Carton, and last but not least, Steve Summers. Man, Steve Summers, the schmooze, Captain Midnight. There's never, ever, 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 ever going to be another one of him. He's got an iconic voice, style, sound, and just way of doing the radio. And when I was tabbed as his replacement, I said, no, don't write that. Like the Post wrote that, and some other outlets like WFAN finds podcaster to replace Steve Summers. No one can replace Steve Summers. But what I'll say is I met Steve Summers on Christmas Eve of 2021 by chance. He had came into the radio station, and when I ran into him, it was like, I don't know. It was like seeing someone in real life, again, breaking a wall. That's like, wow, this is him. And he was so kind, and he was so gracious, and he was so aware of me and my show. And it just blew me away how much he had already listened to my show. I'd only been on air for about a month. He gave me some pointers. He gave me some advice, and he gave me his phone number. And I'm still right now able to call his landline and talk to him for advice. In the beginning, I couldn't sleep. In the beginning, I just like, I couldn't deal with certain things, and I got advice from him. And then I also brought him on my show. I made a point to bring him on my show every month for like the first year and a half. Now we've kind of brought anymore because I'd rather him get his airtime and kill it instead of doing it with me. But Steve Summers, Craig Carton, Sweeney Murdy, and Mark Malusis, I would say, are my four favorites from WFAN. And I have a relationship with all of them, and they're all part of my story. I was just talking to Craig yesterday about Lil Wayne and a Lil Wayne concert because he's friends with Lil Wayne. Those four guys. And then coming up, I just looked up to the guys calling the games like John Madden, guys calling the game like John Sterling, and then all the ESPN guys like Chris Berman, Stuart Scott. And now they're all signing off. John Anderson, I just saw, is done. Neil Everett. That's pretty much where I was. I would love to do SportsCenter one day. That was always a dream. I watch SportsCenter every morning and every night on loop. And I mean, it's not the same as it was, but man, I just always looked up to those guys.
Two of my favorite guests are Dan Schumann, who's with ESPN and does the Toronto Blue Jays, who I never thought would come on my show. Freddie Coleman, and I've had a number of guys, and I've reached out to them, and like you said, they gave me their numbers, and they've been so supportive, and I was just so amazed that they're giving this guy who's older in life opportunity to come on my show. And
your age doesn't matter, Chris. Chris, you're the man. The same way you reached out to me, you were nice about it. You were very professional about it. We're live now. I retweeted this. I saw we had 131 people watching. Hello, everyone watching. Like the same thing I was saying earlier is that people hate up. The people that are up here, we don't hate down. We want to help the next person up. We're basically sending you guys the rope. We're pulling you up with us. Come on. There's room for everybody. And like that's what I was saying. Before we went live, man, like Ian Eagle was my first guest on my Nets podcast that I barely even do. But just the fact that Ian Eagle, the voice of the Nets, was like, yeah, I'll give you the time. Great. The people in the industry that have made it understand how hard it is to make it. And so we try to be helpful. If you ever meet anyone in the industry that's nasty or condescending. You won't. You literally won't, because I've met so many people, and they exchange numbers, emails, and they say, let me know if you ever need anything. Let me know how I can help. And it's genuine, because we understand how hard it is to get on TV, get on the radio. And you got to do things like this, find guests, do content online until you break through.
Absolutely. And I also do media work for the Canadian Football League's Toronto Argonauts, the Buffalo Bisons, who are the Toronto Blue Jays' top farm team, and the Buffalo Bandits of the National Lacrosse League. And I've been getting a lot of schooling from those pro sports teams and opportunities. And you're right. I've had people coming to me now for advice, and I'm trying to pay it forward to other people who might be wanting to get in this industry as well.
Yeah, you got a nice little resume. You got a nice little one sheet of what you've done, who you are, and that's what you need. And for any young people watching this, don't ever think that you're too big for something. Don't ever think that you're too big to call a college game, a high school game. Man, get that experience, get the reps. And that's something else young people don't get. I talk to a lot of young people who are like, yo, let me know if I can ever jump on the podcast. Like I said before, like, hey, I'd love to be a part of your radio show. Man, get the reps and experience that you need with no one watching. Sharpen your sword. That's what I said on this other podcast I did. Because when I first started doing this, I would go live on Instagram. I would go live on YouTube. There'd be like 5 to 10 people max watching. And sometimes people would troll and be condescending, like, this sucks. No, why you only got 6 people in your live? You're a joke. You'll never be anything. Okay, I'm a joke. But while no one's watching, I'm practicing things like how to say my name. Hey, this is Keith McPherson live with Chris right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, while I am not being seen, I'm practicing my one-liners. The universe never unconnects. I'm practicing things that I say all the time so that when I do get in front of the big audience, when I do actually get on, man, I have 1,000 reps. I've got so much experience. It's second nature.
Absolutely. And I'm also now doing some public speaking for high school students. And I never thought when I was in school, I hated public speaking, that 30 years later, I would be doing that. So, but one thing I've learned too, always be humble. And you're going to get your successes, but you're going to get your rejections. I don't use this word failure ever. I find I learn more from my rejections than my successes as well.
Every loss is a lesson. I just went through 5 years ago on my time hop, something that's coming up for me, which I got to start sharing with more people on my Instagram. But 5 years ago, I did this thing called 30 for 30, and I called it 30 for 30 L's, losses, lessons in life. And I just rolled out every day all these different things that happened to me that I learned from: rejection, being told no. And honestly, man, it's like, yeah, here's one right here. It was you probably can't see it on here. This is a video of me. I had an audition for Courtyard Marriott, a correspondent search. The NFL was looking for an American fan to send to London for all the London series games back 5 years ago. I got to the top 3 finalists. I got through that far and got rejected at the end. But I shared that with people to let them know, hey, you're not going to get everything. Keep going. Fast forward to where I am now. I showed people the lowlights. Everybody just wants to show the highlights. Look at my car. Look at my watch. Look at my job. Look who I'm with. Look at my vacation. They don't want to show you the struggle. I showed people the struggle before I won so that people would appreciate it more and also relate to their own life and the struggle that they may be going through, to realize you got to keep going. You got to go through it to get to it. Like, God is preparing you for the wins by taking all of those losses. You talked about talking to kids, speaking to high school kids. That is something I really want to do, and something that I'm actually building out. I have an LLC now, and I'm going to start going back to schools. I want to do a whole circuit of talking to kids that feel like they're underprivileged, talking to kids that feel like they don't have anything, and letting them know, hey, I was there too. You can find a way. And it's good to give back in that way, because representation matters. Me being a young black man, I know that I have to connect with young black men to let them know, hey, like, you can do it, man. You can break through, especially in the future now. There's just more representation, more diversity that's actually become a thing. But like when I was young, that wasn't a thing. You weren't hearing and seeing black voices, but I knew one day that would change. Giving back to kids, whether, it touches one kid or 1,000 kids. Like, that's something that I want to do. I have a kid now. I can't wait to raise my son and he grow up and me give him game and teach him stuff. I'm not going to live forever, but man, my legacy will live on through my son and whatever young kids I'm able to touch.
How old is your son? Is he into sports yet?
He's about to be 1 on April 13th, and he knows how to throw the ball a little bit. He's been to his first spring training game, and
Awesome.
he's already obsessed with the TV and the clicker, and the only thing we watch in my house is live sports.
That's awesome. Hey, and also volunteer work. How I found my passion at 47 was being volunteering at a basketball game, a semi-pro basketball league team. They asked me to do camera work, and the camera work led to my podcast, which led to my radio show. So volunteer work, it's great to give back to your community too, but it also can help you find a passion too, doing volunteer work.
One thing leads to another, and you that's why I just said you can't, as young people, a lot of young people I think are confused. You can't be so selective as far as like, oh, I'm not doing that, or like, I'm not calling a baseball game. I want to work for the NFL and football. No, take every opportunity you could get. One thing always leads to another. As I tell my story, all I'm doing is telling you how I connected the dots, right? There always was another thing. There also was pockets of time where there wasn't a lot of things. I was this close to working at Home Depot, and then MTV called. While I was unemployed, I sold my Jordans. I sold collector's items. I sold my DJ equipment. I was on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist every day hustling. I'll sell furniture. I'll sell anything in my house just to make ends meet. I have over 700 Lyft Uber rides. People hear that from me and they're like, what, you drove Lyft Uber? I'm like, yeah, because I had a car, but I didn't have a job. And I saw one little thing come in my email about, if you do your first 100 rides, we'll add on an extra $1,000. Challenge accepted. But man, driving Lyft Uber, that helped me with what I do now. Every night I'm talking to random people. Every night I'm talking to strangers. What are you doing in Uber? Someone's getting you in your car. I'm turning around. Hey, how's it going? I'm Keith. Nice to meet you. All right, where are we headed today? You're going to the train station? I got you. Oh, so what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. You're just having conversation with people, and it's a complete, roulette wheel of who you're going to get. And then even driving, I learned, I'm from the shore area. I live up in North Jersey now, but driving Lyft Uber up here, I learned all the highways and byways of New York and North Jersey, where now my mom will come up or other people come, even my wife. They're scared to drive around here. I'm not scared to drive around here. I used to drive people around to make $100 a day. It was a humbling experience, but I took a lot from it, man. And like, I feel like today there are too many people that think they're too good to do certain things. No, keep going, keep doing and trying and becoming. It is all adding to who you are, and it is all building who you are for the future.
Absolutely. Hey, Keith, if you got a couple more minutes, I just wanted to mention I was in corporate security for 23 and a half years. I got paid well. It was corporate security for a casino. I had to deal with billionaires, millionaires. I had to deal with people that lost all their money from gambling, because that sometimes happens. So I think that profession kind of prepared me for this show, because I had to learn how to talk to everybody. I also had to ask questions, and listening skills are just as important as talking skills as well.
Yeah, I love that you just shared that. You're going to meet people through all walks of life. You're going to realize that you meet people with money and they're not happy. You're going to meet people with no money and they're happy. You're going to meet people that are just, different, and they're going to meet you at different stages in life. There are a lot of people that are seeing me now and they're thinking about what I used to be, and it's motivating. It's inspiring. Some people are hating because they thought I'd stay stuck there. But like, life goes on. We can keep rocking till 1. I'll say this before your next thing. When I was younger, I only lived for today. When I was younger, I did not think about tomorrow or the future. I did not actually think about the future that I'm living in now, and where I am. And now that I'm here, all I do is think about the future. All I do is try to plan for tomorrow. You just grow up, you mature, and you understand that if you're blessed to live, life can be long, and you can do a lot with your time besides watch Netflix and play Xbox. If you want to do that, but life will pass you by.
I've learned more in the last 4 years in my new career change into radio and media than I did in my corporate career the last few years. And you're right, I was making decent money, but I was not happy. And the pandemic, as bad as it was, it helped me find a new career, and it got me through the pandemic. And I wake up every morning and I have a passion for this. There's some days where it's tough because I'm the solo guy and I'm doing all the work. But as soon as I get my guest on, like yourself and my many other guests, this is what I want to do. I love doing this. I love talking to people. And what I love about this show is it's about the guest. And I love hearing the stories from my guests. And every show I do, I learn something new from my guests as well.
It's a moment in time. This will all be saved. This will all be on the internet forever. The other night I was talking to my wife and I was like, a lot of times I get frustrated because I want it now. I want more money now. I want more status now. I want more success right now. But you have to be grateful for where you are. You have to have gratitude. You have to be thankful for where you are and be present and live in the moment. And sometimes when I get frustrated because I plan for the future, because I think I can be all these things, I have to bring myself to like, hey, just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you were nowhere near here. And, I hope to look back on this in 10 years. Maybe I'll do a podcast with you in 10 years and we're both a lot further along. But this stuff lives forever. This stuff makes you immortal. The internet is never going away. People will be able to search your name, my name, and find this when we're long gone. And that's what people also don't realize, the value in putting out content and stacking content and doing your episodes. Would you say you're at 300 episodes? Over 300?
384, plus I have two other shows, the Argo Bounce live audio show for the Toronto Argonauts, and I have another show on top of that. So I'm around 400 episodes in 4 years.
You're forever in the archives. And there's people that are going to look this stuff up. There's people that are going to watch this stuff, and you live forever. You live on. Your legacy lives on that way. Keep going. Keep stacking.
Absolutely. Eric Smith, the voice of the Toronto Raptors, Chuck Swirsky gave me the best advice. When I first started this, Keith, I scripted everything. I had it written down, and those guys told me it's okay to write points down, but talk to your guests like you're at a sporting event or a coffee shop. Natural conversation makes for better talk, and I've learned that from my guests. I try to learn something each time I have a guest on and try to apply it, and always be yourself. Don't try to be somebody that you're not.
Man, I learned that too. With the radio, when I do my opens at night, in the beginning, I thought I had to write it out like a script. It's not going to flow the same. It's not going to sound natural. It's going to sound forced. Now I just have bullet points. Now I just have keywords. I'm writing my open for tonight. I'm on the fan at 6:30. I can't wait because I haven't been on since opening day. I haven't been on since Thursday, and I only had a 15-minute show because of March Madness, where I didn't get to really deliver. All I did was my open, and I didn't get to even finish that. So yes, whether it's radio, whether it's podcast, you got to talk how people talk, man. You got to talk like you would talk to someone in the bar, in the arena. And that's what I say all the time about my show as well. When people listen to me on WFAN, I want this to feel and sound like we're hanging out talking sports. I want this to feel and sound like a conversation that you had at Yankee Stadium, a conversation that you had at the bar. And not so the New York Yankees started off the season 5-0 for the first time since 1992. It's more like, hey, man, did you see the Yankees? How about them? Look at these guys. They're rolling, like, just more conversational, more relaxed, more casual, and more real, like we're used to hearing people talk.
Absolutely. Hey, quickly, Final Four. What's your thoughts on the Final Four for men's basketball?
I'm kicking myself for not believing in NC State. You know how you watch the little conference tournaments and you think like, oh, they just got hot during the tournament, familiarity. Nah, man, I should have just kept with those guys. My bracket has been busted because it went pretty chalk this year. But excited to see the NC State team versus Purdue. A great story with Purdue redeeming themselves. And then obviously, UConn's going to win the whole thing. They're going to go back to back. They're the best college basketball team we've ever seen. But Alabama's a good story as well. So you get two number ones in the Final Four, a Cinderella at 11 with NC State and Alabama, who, I mean, we think of them as a football school, but Roll Tide, they've got a basketball team, and Nate Oates is a good head coach.
I'm going to root for the underdogs because I'm an underdog myself in life. So I can relate to the NC State. The last time I think they got this far was 1983, which was over 40 years ago, which is hard to believe.
Two things for you. I just heard a story that Bob Hurley is the reason that Nate Oates got his job. Bob Hurley was the guy that got him to where he was because he was like a gym teacher slash high school basketball coach who helped Nate Oates. Now, Bob Hurley's son will face off against Nate Oates in that Final Four game. I was just over here around the corner from me in Jersey gym for kids in the area to go to in the afternoon, like 3-4 o'clock. I just met Bob Hurley at the beginning of this basketball season and had him on the fan with me. And then with the 11 seed NC State, I actually was at the 11 seed George Mason upset of UConn back in 2006 in Washington, D.C. And here's the funny part about that story. I think I've told this story on air. Maybe I haven't, but it's a good one. I was a senior in high school. I think I hadn't gotten my license yet because I would have been old enough to get my license in May, and this happened in April or late March. I'm with my uncle and my uncle's friend. They decide that they want to get drunk at the game. We're in Washington, D.C. I live in Monmouth County. After the game, they're too drunk to drive. So I had my permit, and they're like, all right, good enough. You're going to drive us home. My uncle had a big Ford Expedition. I was scared as hell. I remember to this day the feeling of leaving the arena and the cop lights and all the people walking, and I'm heart beating. I drove us home 3 hours from D.C. to Monmouth County, New Jersey, and we stopped twice for my uncle to get more Bombay Sapphire and Sprite so they could keep drinking. And they were so happy and confident in my driving skills at 17 years old or 16, about to be 17.
And see, that's what I love about this show. My guests always share stories, and I think that's great as well. And so you're going to pick UConn. I'm going to go with NC State. Now, was any of the games at Madison Stewart Garden this year or no?
No, they were in Brooklyn. They were at Barclays Center. And I made some good money. I told you I went to James Madison University.
Yep.
Everybody I talked to from JMU, and if you paid attention to JMU this year, they had only lost 3 games. Everybody I talked to, they're like, there's no way we lose to Wisconsin. So I was down in Tampa at spring training. You couldn't even bet in Florida, right? Or you can't bet in Florida. I couldn't even bet. I called one of my boys, hey, put 200 on JMU money line, put another 100 on JMU to win by 5.5. And I turned $300 into $900. My Airbnb was $300 a night.
Awesome.
And that went on in Brooklyn. I knew. I'm like, there's just some cosmic energy because I'm a Nets fan, unfortunately, as well. I've gone to 100 games at Brooklyn. I'm like, my school is playing in Brooklyn, my old school that I didn't graduate from, but the school I signed my letter of intent. I'm like, I'm betting on them to beat Wisconsin, and they did. I didn't bet $1 on them to beat Duke. I actually grew up rooting for Duke as a kid, and then I got older and realized, like, people hate Duke, and there's no reason to root for Duke if you didn't actually go there.
You've always been a Nets fan, so were you a Nets fan when they were in New Jersey? And
Yeah.
Do you feel that long term that they're going to be solid in Brooklyn?
No, they're not going to be solid. They're not on solid ground. They do have a solid location, solid arena, but man, it's been a revolving door of people in there. So many people that I've talked to that work for the Brooklyn Nets have come and gone. The owner has been absent. Sean Marks has 9 lives. It sucks. The Nets have this dysfunction in their whole existence. The Nets bounced around. They left their fans in New Jersey, like myself. I boycotted the first year that they moved to Brooklyn because I was like, I was young and I was broke. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to get to Brooklyn and watch them now. I was clearly wrong. But no, this has been the most disappointing Nets season, even more so than 12-70, because of where they just were with the superstars and going to the playoffs to be where they are now, firing the head coach, hiring the wrong coach, not making the right moves, not knowing how to keep the superstars happy. I don't know what to expect in Brooklyn in the years to come, but I don't expect them to be solid.
Sounds like my Detroit Pistons with Tom Gore, absent owners, throws money around, hires the wrong GM, hires the wrong coach, and he's got all these young players that are getting destroyed. And it's sad because the Detroit Pistons, 3-time NBA champions, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Ben Wallace, Chauncey Billups. They've had some great success in that city, and the owner has just killed this franchise. And until he sells the team, I can't get my heart invested with them right now. I still love the team, but it's just been awful this year, and the 28 game losing streak on top of that as well.
All-time bad. They set records for being all-time bad. They beat the Nets this year. I should have bet on them to beat the Nets this year, but yeah, it's unfortunate when a team has a good history, the bad boys, and even that team that you mentioned with Hamilton, with Billups, with Ben Wallace.
Going to work Pistons. They're going to work Pistons.
The same uncle that took me to the Elite Eight matchup or whatever it was, where George Mason beat UConn. We also went to go see Allen Iverson. I was a big Allen Iverson fan. We saw Allen Iverson down at what used to be the First Union Center. It was the First Union Center, Wachovia Center, Wells Fargo Center, as the bank changed names. We saw the Pistons back in 2000 and maybe 3 or 4 beat Allen Iverson and those Sixers back then.
Just quick thoughts on Iron Eagle and how good of a broadcaster he is.
He's the man. He's an even better person, and I love the nepotism with his son, Noah, now calling games on Yes Network and used to call games for the Clippers. Man, he does NFL. He does the Nets coverage. He does NBA national coverage, and he doesn't miss. He's always on point, always on time with his puns, with his jokes. And he's just got a knack for it, man. He is a GOAT. He is one of the best, one of the greatest of all time. And like I said, he's someone that supported me. He was on Talking Nets episode like 30-something. He was our first guest, a big get. And whenever I see him at the arena, he shows me love. So shout out to Iron Eagle and the Eagle family.
Definitely. You got time for 2 more minutes? 2 more quick questions?
Yeah, let's go to 1. We got 10 minutes.
Okay, perfect. What is your most memorable New York Yankees memory, and since being a Yankees fan, and what were your thoughts on their impressive 4-game sweep on the road against the Houston Astros? It's one thing to beat them 4 times in a row at Yankee Stadium, but to do it right in Houston, that was a very impressive start to the season.
I'll give you 2, because the young years are hard to recall. I know I was sitting in my apartment on the carpet watching those games. I know it felt good to win the World Series in 98. 99, 2000, but it's hard to remember those days. I was in elementary school. 2009, I was in college, though. That was epic because I had the football house. I lived with 6 other football players, and I was the only one that was 21. So as they went through the ALDS, ALCS World Series, we were throwing parties, and I had a good connect down the street with liquor store, 5-minute walk from my college house, where I was rolling barrels of beer, kegs. I'm every game I'm bringing a big ass keg to my college house so we can drink and watch the Yankees. And when they won the World Series, we had $5 champagne and we popped and ruined the ceiling. And then the landlords charged us for that at the end of the year. 2009 was amazing, and I just was dumb and young, and I didn't go to the parade because I had to go to football practice in class. And I thought, whatever. When I graduate, I'll work in New York City. I'll see a bunch of Yankees World Series and parades in the next 15, 20 years. It's already been 15 years and 0. Now, here's another one. At the stadium, what I've experienced at the stadium, man, the best day that I ever had at the stadium was in 2019 when we were playing the Twins. Shout out to my guy, Batista. We show up to the stadium bright and early because we know what to do. I remember I ran into Mike Ford on the street. Man, we partied all day. And that day, Didi Gregorius hit a grand slam, and I blacked out. He hit the ball right to the section I was in. And after that, the party was on, and we partied all night into the night. I think I was at Yankee Stadium from like 9 a.m. to 12 a.m., and that was the best postseason memory that I've had at the stadium.
Being a Tigers fan, my memory is the 84 Tigers team, which was 40 years ago, which is hard to believe. And as a 12-year-old kid, I thought they were going to win more. But when them beating San Diego was amazing, and just the excitement of winning it. But you also, too, when your team wins a championship, there's no guarantees it's going to happen every year after year after year. So yeah. I've learned now, if the Tigers ever do get back on top, to appreciate it even more. And as for your Yankees, I would say the 96 team, because I grew up in the 70s and I remember Reggie Jackson in the Yankees teams. They had some great teams in the 70s, but they had a stretch in the 80s. They weren't very good. And the only thing I would regret about the 96 team that won was Don Mattingly. I wish he was on that team because he's Mr. Baseball, Donnie Baseball, and I would have loved to seen him win a championship with the Yankees in 96.
Yeah, I mentioned Donnie a lot because I never got to see him step in the batter's box. I watched that documentary on MLB Network, and I'm like, man, he was a machine, the hitman. He was automatic. He's the guy that you root for. He's the guy you can't wait to see him hit. And he just missed out on the dynasty. And I got into baseball being a fan of the Yankees and Bernie Williams and Derek Jeter, and it's great now to have Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. You asked me how I felt about the sweep of the Houston Astros. What I feel like is that was so important. You couldn't ask for a better start. I don't think any of us thought we were sweeping the Houston Astros, who have gone to the last 7 American League Championship Series, who have owned the Yankees. I was at the wild card game in 2015 when they bounced us. I was at those games in 2017 in the ALCS. I was at those games in 2019. I was at those games in 2022. They have been our most hated and feared rival. It hasn't even been a rivalry. So to go into their building to start off this season, which is supposed to be a bounce back year after the worst season of our lives last year, man, I had so much fun this weekend watching every single game. It almost didn't feel real, but I'm also not a fool. I'm also a baseball fan, and I understand that it's just the first few games, right? Last night, the Astros go out there and throw a no-hitter. Who saw that coming, right? And the Yankees go to Arizona and get another one. They're 5-0. You love to see it, but at the same time, you can't get too high on it because we've all been hurt so many times. Something I'm going to say on air tonight is please do not start what we did in 2022, which was compare this team's record to every other World Series team and say, this is the team. They're playing at the same pace. Their winning percentage is the same. Oh, the last time the Yankees won X amount of games in a row, they went to the World Series. Like, let's not do that. I know we're gonna, but like, let's take this. And here's a saying that I say on the radio, and I actually perfected before I got on the radio. We take this day by day, series by series, week by week, month to month. You can't jump ahead. You can't fast forward to October. You can't fast forward to what's going to happen in the ALDS World Series. Let's just slow it down, enjoy it. We've got another game tonight at 9:40 p.m. Let's go Yanks.
Absolutely. And when I talked to the Buffalo Bison's manager, Casey Candell, who is a major league player, that's his approach too. He tells his team, win or lose, one game at a time, one day at a time. And sometimes the fans and sometimes the media can get overreactive. Like this morning, the Yankees are 5-0 for the first time since 1992. First time in their franchise history that they've won their first 5 games on the road, which I didn't even know about.
That's what I'm saying. People are going to start to, I have all that stuff in my notes. People are going to start to pull all the facts and all these different things. Longest win streaks the Yankees have had. They've done this twice. Or my boy sent this. This is the longest win streak that the Yankees had. The longest win streak that the Yankees had in 2023 was 5 games. They did it twice. They've won the first 5 games this season, and they're looking for their 6th win in a row. And that would be the first time since 2 years ago, September 2022. So, yeah, man, it is what it is, but let's not make it more than it is.
Absolutely. I'm just gonna wrap this up. Which New York team will win the next championship in New York City, in your opinion? Is it going to be the Rangers, the Yankees, Giants, Jets?
Not the Knicks. I've been on record saying the New York Rangers. I just think that they are a house. I think with Peter Laviolette coming in this year, they're going to have a different feel and presence in the postseason in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They've been close. 2 years ago, I was for sure that they were beating the Lightning. Even last year, a lot of them, Rangers fans, were sure that they were beating my Devils. I got the Devils poster right there. Hasn't been the best year for the Devils, but I'm going to stick with the Rangers because I'm on record saying the Rangers. And just the way the timeline goes, their season ends in June. The Yankee season won't end until October. I'll stick with the Rangers, but boy, I want it. I need it more than anything to be the New York Yankees because of where I've worked myself to. I talked about how I kick myself every day for not going to the parade in 2009. I had freshly turned 21 and was able to drink. but I had responsibilities at class and at football practice. Man, to fast forward 15 years and see where I am in my career, the Yankees win the World Series, my life is going to be so much better. And that parade is going to be one for the ages. All I need is one. All I need is one. I'm getting old. I'm not going to be able to drink and party the way I want to if this happens in 20 years. This year, if this is a year, let's go, baby. 28.
I'm a Red Wings fan, and I don't know if we're going to get in this year, the playoff wise, but I'm still bitter at the 95 Devils for that Stanley Cup sweep because Detroit had the best team in 95, but is in hockey. It's not always the most talented team. And I to credit those 95 Devils, Martin Brodeur and Lou Namolero, the head coach, the GM. Yep. They just did a great job. Tremendous organization, the New Jersey Devils, winning 3 Stanley Cups. And I think they are on the right path back to getting back into being a regular contender.
I love the Devils now. I love going to the Rock. They're a first-class organization. They have treated me like a superstar from the first time that they heard of me, only like 5 months on the radio. They just roll out the red carpet for me. I said to one of my friends that I've been bringing to the game, like, hey, man, how come you didn't put me on sooner? Because I've gone back to look at the Devils' history, and I'm like, damn, I wish I was locked in like this. I wish I was a fan in the late 90s and even the 2000s when they were winning Stanley Cups.
Absolutely. And finally, what's a fun fact about Keith McPherson your audience might not know about? And where can my audience follow you on social media? And when are you going to be on WFAN 66 AM in New York next?
Some people think I'm at my peak right now. Some people think this is the greatest accomplishment, greatest thing I'll ever do, being on WFAN, maybe. But when I was in the 2nd grade, I won the Goosebumps sweepstakes on Fox 5, sending a letter to the P.O. box, and they sent me all 50, the first 50 R.L. Stine Goosebumps books, and I still have them today. That was when I peaked. Same year, I also won the Jelly Bean contest for picking the closest score to the Super Bowl. The Dallas Cowboys beat the Steelers like, I don't know, 27-10. I forget my score, but I won, and I was a Dallas fan, so I got to wear my Troy Aikman jersey and stand in front of class with the big jelly beans, and that was when I peaked. And then lastly, I got a little bit older, and shout out to my brother for the assist. Pokemon Snap comes out, and at the end of the game, the final boss is Mewtwo. You got to get a sharp picture of Mewtwo. Well, we played that game day in and day out, and we got the best picture of Mewtwo, sent it in, and they sent us a whole bunch of Pokemon cards and stickers and merchandise. And those are the top 3 things I've ever done in life, honestly. I'm back on the Fan tonight at 6:30. And then tomorrow, I'm actually at the T-Mobile store in Times Square with Paul O'Neill and Cecil Fielder. We're going to whoop it up, get the Yankee fans hyped, talk about the season, get ready for the home opener from 5 to 6. And then I'll see you opening day in the Bronx all day Friday. And then I'm back on the Fan Saturday before the Saturday night game, and I'll be there as well. Big week.
Best way to find you on social media? I guess you're on LinkedIn, obviously, but you're also on Twitter, TikTok.
Yeah, just my name. My mom came up with it. I did the rest. Keith McPherson, real name, no gimmicks, authentic, real name, no gimmicks. Like, I don't have a nickname. Actually, I got like 20 nicknames, but I just go by my government name. That's my stage name. And if you search Keith McPherson on pretty much any platform, you'll find me. I got to do better on like YouTube, and I'm working on my TikTok, but really I'm a Twitter head, and I do all right on Instagram.
And WFAN's website is odyssey.com/WFAN. Hey, I hope your Yankees do well this year, as long as they don't play my Detroit Tigers. As long as they don't play the Tigers, we'll see what happens. But it's a long season, as you know. Hey, Keith, I want to say thank you for giving me over an hour of your time today. And I would love to have you back on as a guest in the future as well.
Yeah, Chris, like I said, man, thanks for being a fan. Thanks for being kind. Thanks for being supportive, reaching out, asking me to join you, being professional, and finding the time in my schedule. I'm glad I could come through and do this today. And good luck to your Detroit Tigers here in New York facing the Mets tonight if the weather holds up. Adrian Hauser makes his first start for the Mets. And you guys have who? Casey Mize? Yep, yes. Casey Mize on the mound. So that should be a win. And good luck to your Tigers off of what they did last night as the Mets blew it in the 10th inning, and you guys made them pay for it.
I'm hoping to get back to New York City again. I've been there twice, and I love the city and just the food, the
It's a
sports.
wild place. It's a
It is a
jungle,
while.
concrete jungle where dreams are made of. That's a real thing.
Absolutely. But hey, Keith, I want to say thank you so much for coming on live with CDP Sports Talk, which is on WQEE 99.1 FM and CKRT Border City Radio in Windsor, just outside of Detroit. Thank you so much, Keith. And I'll send you an audio and video copy of our show. And I will do some clips on TikTok as well, if you'd like to post on your social media as well.
TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, clip it up, tag me, we'll share. I've been sharing this. Let's see how many people we've got. What's up, people in the chat?
300.
Yeah, I kept hitting retweet. So we had 300 people live watching on Twitter. And I don't know if you put this on YouTube or wherever else. But
Yes,
shout out
it's
to
on.
you guys.
Yep.
Shout out to you guys for watching.
Yes, on behalf of CDP, my initials, Chris Palme, thank you so much for watching and those listening. And Keith, I hope you have a great afternoon and looking forward to your next show on WFAN. And maybe one day I'll call into your show as a fan.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks so much, Keith. Have a great afternoon and go Yankees. All right, guys, that was the best of Live with CDP Sports Talk. That was Keith McPherson from WFAN 66 in New York. Unfortunately, tonight's scheduled guest, Lee Newton, unavailable due to having power and internet issues at her home in South Carolina. We'll reschedule with Lee Newton very soon as well. My next Live with CDP Sports Talk is going to be sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in Guelph Auto Mall. Is going to be Monday, May 13th at 9 p.m. Monday, May 13th, time change, 9 p.m. Eastern, with my guest, Brendan Glasheen. He's an ESPN play-by-play announcer for the National Lacrosse League. Brandon's going to come on and preview the 2024 National Lacrosse League Finals between the Albany Firewolves and the Buffalo Bandits, which starts Friday, May 17th at Albany. Game 2 is Saturday, May 18th at the KeyBank Center in Buffalo. And if there's a third game in this series, Saturday, May 25th at 5 o'clock at Albany. The Bandits are trying to win back-to-back NL titles for the first time since 92 and 93, and they're trying to win their 6th championship as well. And they had an exciting 10-8 comeback victory over the Toronto Rock to eliminate the Rock again. And Albany has eliminated Halifax and San Diego to reach the National Lacrosse League Finals for the first time in their team history as well. Again, guys, I apologize. My guest, Lee Newton, tonight, a Nashville recording artist star who's just released 2 new songs, Carolina Rain, and Maybe I Will, and Maybe I Won't. Unfortunately, had some internet and power issues in her home in South Carolina. So fingers crossed we'll be able to reschedule Lee very soon. But yeah, as of now, my next episode is going to be Monday, May 13th. Remember, at 9 o'clock with Brandon Glasheen. He's also a radio personality on 98.5, the Sports Hub in Boston. And Brandon is also the play-by-play voice for the Maine Celtics of the G League as well. Before we wrap this up, guys, got some CFL news. Toronto Argonauts quarterback Chad Kelly has been suspended by the CFL for 2 preseason games and at least 9 regular season games from the CFL for violating gender-based violence policy, and he also has to undergo counseling as well. We're not sure if he's going to appeal this decision, but the Toronto Argonauts will be without Chad Kelly for at least a minimum of half this season, and we'll see what happens. That goes from there as well. Finally, Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership. Barry Cullen Chevrolet sponsors Live with CDP Sports Talk. You can get a 2024 Silverado 1500 custom crew cab. You can lease right now for $291 bi-weekly. That's like $145 weekly at 4.5% for 24 months with $3,889 down payment on ultra low kilometer lease. Eligible Costco members can receive a $1,200 bonus on select trucks as well. More details at barrycullen.com. Guys, I am fighting a cold. I picked up a bug yesterday, so don't mind me. But again, we will be back for Live with CDP Sports Talk on Monday, May 13th at 9 p.m. with Brendan Glasheen, and I will work to reschedule tonight's guest, Lee Newton, as well. And Live with CDP Sports Talk, again, is on weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM and sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph. I hope everybody has a great night, and I hope everyone enjoyed tonight's Best of Live with CDP episode with Keith McPherson, a radio personality from WFAN 66 in New York. And Keith is on weeknights on WFAN between Monday and Friday. Check him out on social media as well. That's about it. We will see you here for another edition of Live with CDP Sports Talk again on Monday, May 13th at 9 p.m. instead of 8. We've had a time change, 9 p.m. with Brendan Glasheen. And I'm looking forward to talking to the National Lacrosse League Finals with Brandon. And I'm working on another guest that's with the National Lacrosse League for next week as well. So hopefully I will be 100% for next week. And I'm looking forward to attending Game 2 of the National Lacrosse League finals between Albany and Buffalo on Saturday, May 18th at the KeyBank Center in Buffalo. I hope everybody has a great night, great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday night, 9 o'clock with Brendan Glasheen, play-by-play announcer for the ESPN National Lacrosse League, and also the Maine Celtics. So maybe we'll talk to Brandon a little bit about the Maine Celtics and also the Boston Celtics as well, who are going to be NBA final contenders this year as well. Have a great night. Again, I apologize for Lee Newton. Unfortunately, technical problems, and I was glad to air an episode from a month ago with Keith McPherson, again from WFAN 66 in New York. Have a great night, everybody. Have a great weekend, and hopefully I'll be feeling better for my next episode, Monday, May 13th, 9 p.m. Talk to you guys later. Have a good night and enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs, Major League Baseball, and the NBA playoffs.